So we're on our 12th or 13th day today. What are we on? 12th. We're on our 12th day today. It's hard to remember which day is which, to be honest, or to keep track. But it's about time we took you out into the fields with us. So this is our campsite, which I'm sure you've seen, the dome tent. And then we've got our tents where we're living over there. And yeah, you can see that today is actually a really good day. It's nice. Look at all the beautiful sky here. Yeah, it's gorgeous. It's one of the only days where I'm actually fairly confident that I can take this camera out into the countryside and not risk like getting it all bashed up or getting it rained on or anything. Anyway, you can see in the environment that there isn't really much going on. There's just a lot of rocks and mud and stuff, and there's a few plants, but not many. This is saxifrage, and this is something you can actually eat, these purple flowers, although I'm not too fond of them, to be honest. But Randy, our guide, he just is constantly munching on them. And he says that they're one of the things that you can eat here to survive on if there's no other food. And I mean, there's not really a lot going on either. I mean, he eats seals and polar bears and caribou and stuff like that, but we've not seen any kind of animal life here at all, other than maybe about 3 or 4 birds in the whole time that we've been here. And what?
We call those
Muskox, yeah, and muskox. So you can also see that there's not that much snow. Like when we got here, all of these snowbanks behind the tent were a lot more substantial, and they've since melted away. And generally throughout the trip, the snow's been melting as we've been here, and sections of the river where we've been sampling that had previously been inaccessible have now melted, and we're able to get down into them. And so that's what we're doing today. We're heading towards the river that we've been looking at, and trying to fill out a bit of the section that we've missed, which was inaccessible before. So hopefully we'll be able to get into that now. In general, the ground is fairly solid where we are in camp. There's a lot of rocks underfoot, and there's also a lot of mud as well. So if I just take you over to the little stream that we have by our tent, you'll be able to see the kinds of terrain that we're having to get across. So there's a lot of polygons. I don't know if you'll be able to see them on this film, but the mud freezes and expands, and then all the rocks that were laying on top of them get pushed to the side. So if you can see here, you've got quite a lot of rocks all gathered together in lines all around the floor, and those are the safe parts to walk on, really. This is what we'll spend most of our time doing, just picking our way through all the rocks so that we've got a really firm foundation. So if we go over to the actual stream itself, you can see some of the conditions that we'll have to deal with when we're around water. So it gets a lot more difficult because you really start to sink in. And my foot, if I was to remain standing in there, would end up maybe a couple of feet under mud. And so a lot of the terrain is actually dealing with stuff like that. We're walking over snow, we're walking over mud, we're walking over rocks. And then the rocks themselves are incredibly weathered. They're very, very coarse, and they tear up your boots like you wouldn't imagine. So I've got a pair of boots that were brand new from the shop. They're about 2 weeks old now. 2 weeks of constant use out here, and the sole is already starting to wear through. The toes of them, I got some unprotected toes, and they are absolutely scratched through. They are going to start leaking very soon, which is not something that you want to happen in the Arctic. Walking on snow is all right, apart from you don't quite know how deep it's going to be. So there's been a few times where I've been trying to pick my way over a snowbank along with the rest of the team, I am a bit heavier than everyone else with my giant pack that I've got and my giant frame, my giant gut. So I've been going through the snow quite a lot, and that's taken me to about knee level. The worst has been to about thigh level, and then having to crawl over the snow, so I've got a larger surface area. It's not the most fun, and it gets you fairly cold, to say the least, and also fairly wet, which is one of the major problems here, is making sure that you stay dry, and that's what didn't happen with Emma when we dunked her in the river the other day. So I'll see if I can get a breakdown of all the life and all the wildlife and plants and stuff from Randy in a bit as we're walking along to the next site, and then also I'll check in with you throughout the day with all the things that we're doing, with all the things that we're finding out in the field, and really give you an idea of what life is like here doing field work. So I'll see you in a bit. So this is Reed Bay, which has been our home for the last almost 2 weeks. It's still pretty frozen over, so that's one of the things that's keeping the polar bears away from camp at the minute, which is pretty fortunate for us. It's been a late spring here and still able to hunt out on the ice. There's plenty of seal holes where they'll pop out of and the bear will just wait there. And so they haven't been coming inland. If all of this ice was melted, then they'd be walking around the coast trying to find food, and they'd probably be a bit hungrier. So that's really worked in our favour. Up here you can really hear how strong the wind is. I mean, I've got a special microphone cover with me that protects it from the sound of the wind blowing, and even that is struggling to block out that noise. So yeah, once you're up on the hills and high up and near the coast, the environments are really quite harsh. But over there where these cliffs are, that is where Pagea plotnici, which is a 1.5 metre long stylonurid eurypterid, was found. So I'm super keen on getting over there, but it might be an issue because we'd have to cross maybe a couple of streams and a couple of snowbanks to get there, and we're running out of days as well. For the main project, we still need to find some great Gnathostone material in the Devonian, but I want to get over there so bad. I just know that there's such, like, the rarest of the rare eurypterids are just over there, and I mean, it's like, what, 2 kilometers away as the crow flies, maybe like a couple of hours or something walk, don't know, but doesn't look like we'll be getting there at the minute, which is a real shame. But still, you know, we're gonna see if we can find out about the evolution of the Gnathostomes, which is a pretty cool project in itself. We're gonna be headed down here over to that snowbank. Everyone's carried on and I've just been stood here talking to you lot, so I better go and catch up. Yep, we're gonna head down there and I'll show you what it's like in the riverbed. One of the worst parts of the day is having to get over some pretty dodgy terrain. So as we're getting down into the river valley, one of the only accessible places we can go, due to like all of these snow drifts that cover the tops of a lot of the banks or the cliffs that are on one side, one of the places we can go down are the scree slopes, and they are pretty gnarly. Like, you're going to be walking around on around 45-degree slopes on loose rocks. There's nothing binding them really together apart from a bit of mud, and so we've been sliding around everywhere trying to get down a lot of these, and the guys have made it down. Yeah, there we go, Emma's just made it, and it's okay to do. It's I'm sure you'll look at this and think, oh, that doesn't look too bad. And I mean, I guess part of that is perspective. The other part is like, yeah, it's not that bad at all, really. But 12 days later of doing this, your Achilles tendons are hurting, your feet are flopping everywhere sideways, and it really goes to show that you need a lot of ankle support on this kind of material. Otherwise, you are really going to injure yourself. And then once we are down into the river valley, then like further up where it gets a lot steeper, like we've had to contour around on those scree slopes, and so that has been really testing on the ankles. So, but down here the rocks are producing fossils. We don't know if they are Devonian or Silurian. They're right on the boundary, and we're looking for Silurian gnathostomes, and so we're going to have to walk further up. We're going to have to get right down deep into that valley and see if we can find anything in there. And this is the last section that we're missing. We've managed to look through the whole length of this river valley effectively. We haven't done that far because we know that that's Devonian, but from here all the way, like for maybe 5 kilometers or something, we've looked at all the rocks in there, and this is the last bit that we're getting today. So hopefully we'll get some results, hopefully we'll get some fish, and hopefully I'll get down this slope in one piece. The river's nice and low today. It has been flowing a lot higher. As we reach the end of the day, the sun at its brightest will melt a lot of snow, and though it doesn't really look like too much has gone from the hillsides, there will be a big noticeable difference in the height of the water. And we've got to pick our crossing points pretty well. Jumping over from rock to rock is the best bet. Sometimes we've got to use the snowbanks, but as you can see, the river undercuts a lot of them. And a lot of the time you'll also have tributaries that are coming down below the snow, and you can't actually see them. You may see just maybe a little indentation in the snowbank that will give you an indication that there is a river running under there, and you do not want to go through that. If you go through and it's flowing pretty quickly, then you're going to get swept under, and that's the end of you. So yeah, crossing can be a problem, especially yesterday when we dunked Emma in the water. So yeah, it's pretty cold. And as we were saying in the audio that we recorded, at the bottom of this river is not actually just rocks. Underneath the rocks is more ice. So this whole river is, and all of the rocks that have been deposited here is on top of a bed of ice. And sometimes you can see where all the rocks have parted in the right way. You can see straight through to the bottom of the river, and it's a beautiful bright blue, and you know that you're just walking on ice, on top of gravel, on top of ice. Randy's just made his way over, so I guess I'm gonna have to do a few stepping stones and hope that I can get my camera over in one piece with my feet dry. All right, across the river now, and what we're gonna do next is get out of the river valley. Yeah, so all of that climb down is now going to be followed by a climb up, and we're going to go up out of the valley. We're going to miss out all of this steep stuff by walking around the top of it where it's a lot shallower, but this climb is going to be pretty brutal. Not only have we got to go over snow, but then also scree slopes, more snow, and then undoubtedly there's a lot of mud on top. So this is really the hardest part of the day when you've got to do these climbs. It's really tough on your Achilles and your ankles in general, and if you've got a huge bag on, then it can get pretty tough, especially when you've got lots of specimens. You are really shifting a lot of weight up there. And also staying dry is an important thing, so if you get sweaty, you've got to delayer straight away and really look after the amount of moisture that's around your body, because as soon as you finish climbing, you cool down, the wind is really strong at the top, that is going to get you really cold really quickly, and that's one of the biggest dangers. So climbing up hills takes a lot of effort, and it takes a lot of care to do safely and correctly. So yep, we'll get to the fossils soon enough, I promise. We're on top, we made it up in one piece. I'm tired, my legs are burning. Like, you cannot skip leg day out here. I mean, how far have we climbed? Something tiny like 20 meters.
More than that.
More than that. Feels a lot more than that. But I fell over 3 times, which is a bit worrying when you're carrying £2,000 camera,
That's
300 and whatever $1,000. We should not be carrying this kind of equipment, but made it up. Only fell 3 times. Had a little bit of a slide on the way down. It was fun, but worrying, with the potential of death at the very bottom. But we all made it up, so now we move along. We see what we can find further upstream.
Melodrama.
More melodrama. And then we're back down into the river valley, and then we got to do all of that over again on the way back, which should be fun, right?
Yep, totally. It'll be a blast.
We've now found where we're going to head down into the river valley. Believe it or not, there's actually a way down from this snow here. The other side is quite a sizable cliff, so it's pretty worrying when you can't see the over the peak of the hill, of the crest. But Anthony is looking like he's going down pretty safely. So it's going to be quite a walk out. You can see how snowblind you get in this. I mean, all you can see is your feet in front of you, and everything else is just a blanket of white. So hopefully we'll make it down safe, but it's going to be another really steep scree slope, which is going to be absolutely horrible to walk back up. I think the rest of the team are, yeah, they're coming. They're getting ready. Right, see you at the bottom. And this is our reward. We've made it into the valley a little bit from that last snowbank. I went into my up to my knees in that, so my boots are pretty wet, my trousers are wet. But look at all of this exposure that we've got. We've got all of the rocks that are on the other side of the cliff, and they're all come this side, and they're all spread out. So you're seeing the top surface of all of these beds. And we're going to be spending the next couple of hours looking through these, seeing if there are any fish fossils. From first glance, maybe not, you know. It doesn't look like the right rocks that we've been finding all the fish fossils in elsewhere in this river section, but never say never. We'll see if we can find any beds, and we'll let you know when we do find them. So Martin, we are looking for fish bits. Have you managed to find any yet?
Nothing terribly convincing, but just looking at this muddy limestone that has a lot of shelly pieces in it, and that can sometimes lead you to finding fish fossil material in the rock. So just having a good close look at it, brought out the little hand lens and just get really close to the rocks and have a look for things like little scales or spines or anything like that.
Okay, so we're looking for kind of new stuff, new species and things that haven't been seen before in the Silurian. How would you know when you found something? What is your search image? Are you looking for anything in particular, or is it just whatever pops up that's different?
So bone has a very different sort of texture and luster to it than other minerals that you'll find in the rock, including the shells of invertebrates such as these brachiopod shells. They will look and weather a lot like the surrounding limestone, whereas bone has a more kind of greasy luster to it, because it's made of a different chemical. It's made of phosphate. And so you look for that, and you look for very different textures. For one, it weathers differently from the surrounding shelly fossils. It tends to stand out and resist weathering a little bit better. It'll have kind of a spongy structure to it, or it will have little tubercles on it. And those kinds of things indicate that it's probably or possibly a fish.
Okay, so why haven't we seen many here? Like, we've seen some beds, in our trip that are covered in fishy bits.
Yep.
And here we've got lots of inclusions. We've got brachiopods and other reefal stuff,
Yeah.
corally things. So why no fish here?
It's always a bit of a mystery. It's something we'd like to understand more. It just could be that they're not present. It could be that something about this area is not favorable to preserving them. Or it could be that they're there and you just can't see them because they're tiny fragments and they're so broken up that you just can't see them with the naked eye or even with a little hand lens.
So what would the plan be for here and now then?
Look around a little bit more. There's some things that look kind of suspect, so take a good close look at them. Look around at neighboring pieces to see if there's anything similar. And then maybe just take a sample from the rock and digest it in acid in the lab and see if there's anything inside.
Okay, and
Yep.
then move onwards and upwards.
All right. Me?
Us.
Yep. I thought you were pointing me up the hill. Yes, then onwards and downwards in the section, actually.
And I think a last point should be made about the dangers of working here. If we just look over to one edge, no, the other edge.
This one. Ah, yes.
I mean, I'll just hold my camera over there. That is a huge ravine.
It's a hell of a toboggan ride.
Yeah, looks fun.
Yeah.
Hi, so it's after lunch now. We've spent the morning kind of traversing upstream, so down the section through older rocks. We haven't really found much apart from a few fragments. We found a bit of acanthodian jaw, a tiny millimetre tooth, but both of these things kind of weren't in bedding planes, so haven't been that useful. We've now since lunch moved further upstream, so kind of into older rocks. But again, we haven't found anything, so Martin and Anthony have now gone down into the riverbed in the waders and are going to be doing spot sampling, which is where they go along, look for shelly beds where we might find vertebrate material, and are going to try and, well, we'll take that material back to the UK and we'll dissolve it and see if we can find any microfossils in there. We know this area has been productive in the past, where they found some Lophosteus, which is an osteichthyon or a jawed vertebrate. So we're hoping that in some of the spot samples we managed to get some of those, but we will only know that when we get back to the UK. So today is kind of a coming together day for us, because we've now been kind of up the whole of the river as much as we can get to that's not under snow cover, and I feel like we've kind of seen all the rocks there are in this formation, which has been really good for kind of understanding how the different environments change as we go up and down the river and through time. So we're hoping we've got some good stuff. I'm pretty pleased. I think we're all pretty pleased with the vertebrates we found so far. We've been pretty productive.